Hola, ¿qué pasa? I don't speak much Spanish, or any really, so my talk's going to be in English. Someday I'll learn Spanish. I come here 3 times a year and just bumble through with basically apologizing in Spanish over and over again and asking, aquí? Do you need me here? So I don't really know Spanish. I'm here to talk to you about contacting press. I've been in games for a long time. I've been recording indie games since about 2012 on YouTube, and I've been writing professionally in indie games since 2014. So I've spent a lot of time answering emails, getting pitches, going around and doing freelance work, and generally working in the games industry. And now I'm going to struggle with this clicker. So I'm press. Today I'm a speaker, but I go to lots of events as press. I went to GDC as press. I go to EGX Resd as press. I go to Gamescom as press. I really like traveling. I really like seeing other events and seeing different things that go on at other events and making connections. I feel that's important as a member of the press. But I do a lot more, as Ramon had said. So I also am the licensing manager for Armor Games. If you have a browser-based game that you want to put on our web platform, I'm the person you talk to. I license games, so you can get money for that. That's pretty nice. We also have a publishing side that I can direct you to for like Steam, console, mobile publishing, and that's really nice. So feel free to talk to me about that. I've been doing that for a while. I'm a social media influencer, which just means I have a lot of Twitter followers. That's it. That's really all it means. I also tweet a lot. I do a lot of highlighting games through Twitter. I do a lot of threads of indie games on Twitter that get a lot of traction because of the following that I have. So it's worth mentioning. I have a personal blog, which has nothing to do with games, but I like mentioning it. But I like mentioning it because I have hobbies. I promise. I don't just do games. It does sound like I do. I don't. I also work with little game jams like Proc Jam, and I make designs. I have a cat now. His name's Pancake, and I love him. Just putting that out there. So what kind of press am I? There are lots of different types of press, and I'm going to talk about every place that I currently write for. And all of the differences between them, because a lot of people don't understand that there's different websites basically for different stuff. So there's like freelance press, there's staff writers, there's news writers, there's lots of different people working in different places, and I do a lot of different stuff. Firstly, I'm a co-owner of this website. It's called Indie Games Plus. We do short 200-word articles, maybe 500-word articles. They're all classified as news. None of them are news. It's mainly free games, games on itch, games that don't get a lot of attention on Steam. These are tiny, tiny gems that we have a bigger audience to show them to. There's lots of hands-on from events. Most of the games that I've touched here will be written up for that website. And it's very consumer-focused. It's focused on getting your games in front of people who want to play games. We took over after IndieGames.com went down. We ended up being where they are. And that's what we do there. As an owner, it means I don't have to pitch anything. It means that I do not have to submit an article with an angle and then wait for someone to come back to me and say yes or no. I'm just meant to write stuff, which means the only person as a developer you have to get approval from is me. I don't have to take your game and go, here's the angle we'll do it on. I can just write about it. So contacting someone who's a staff writer at a site is more beneficial in those ways. I write for Big Boss Battle. Again, I'm an owner of this site, so I don't have anyone I really report to. This site works more towards long-form features and long-form reviews, 800-word articles, list articles, articles that get more traction and stay around a bit longer, have more longevity. We do lots of console games here. We have a whole team that just likes playing Xbox games. Don't know why. We do lots of hands-on from events, but not me personally, our team. Again, it's consumer-focused. It's something that we have a bigger team than Indie Games Plus working on. So any game sent to an editor here gets given to a team, basically, and they just get to pick and choose. So, game analytics is a different place. It's not consumer. That's weird. It's basically like what developers can learn, so business to business. I write lists every single month on like just different mobile games and what you as a developer could learn from this mobile game. And then they feature those mobile games throughout the month, basically. So you get some traction through their audience interested about, you know, playing mobile games, but a lot of it is literally what you can take as inspiration from other games. Most recently, I wrote about free-to-play and how to actually make money on free-to-play and how certain games were doing well at either integrating ads or integrating in-app purchases or just using the free-to-play model well. You can't pitch to me on this site. because I'm not a staff writer. So I have to literally find your game through my email or through online, and then I write about whatever I want. I do have to get all of the games approved, so it's a different structure for me as an individual. I also do the same type of thing for Games Radar. Oh, I've gone forward too many. But this is consumer focused. It's a list every month. It's a big review every month of a game that's been released really recently, and then a bunch of little updates that stay permanently on their website as the best games on iOS. So it's good if you want your game on a list of top stuff, and top stuff ranks well in Google, so it is viewed a lot more. I also write for Alpha Beta Gamer, which is another niche site. They look for game jam games, public betas, public early access, any type of game that's still in development, but I have to ask someone first, and if the game is at high enough quality, it gets rejected. And that's not down to me, it's down to the owners. They also do a lot of giveaways. Oh, and I play on YouTube. I play lots of games on YouTube, mainly Let's Plays of Game Jam games. I play lots of compilations of Game Jam games. And then I play individual Let's Plays, but only food-based games, because they're games I care about, or games that I physically find and think are cool. So that's an even smaller niche. So that's a lot of different websites, and these are just the websites that I write for. They're not all of the websites out there. And you've got a lot of different websites out there. When you go and you email press, it's important to know what the websites write about. That may seem like a very simple thing, but it's not for a lot of people. My partner works for Pocket Gamer, and he gets loads of emails about Steam games. He works for Pocket Gamer. He cannot write about Steam games. They're about mobile games. Taking the time to sit there and look at what the site actually publishes is the first step in contacting press from that site. A site might have big numbers, but if you go to Indie Games Plus with your big shooter game that's been out on Steam, that's not got a whole lot of traction, but doesn't fit with any of the artistic style of Indie Games Plus, they're probably going to pass it over, and it's a waste of everyone's time. So you have to work on finding where your game would actually fit in, and spending some time contacting those people. And you can do that a lot of different ways. You can literally find a game that's similar to yours and start Googling where it's been covered, and then contacting the people that have covered the similar game and let them know that it's similar. That's going to get you much more farther than just randomly CCing every person ever who's ever written an article and hoping someone picks it up. So as I mentioned before, freelancers versus staff writers is a big difference between them. Freelancers are basically people who go from website to website pitching angles and hoping someone pays them. It kind of sucks, it's really difficult, and there are some freelancers who work on the basis where they will promise you an article and then pitch them 100 times and then maybe not get an article, which is kind of sad, but it's a thing that happens. They definitely need a point of view to go for. So if you're emailing a freelancer, it's very good to have some sort of angle in your email that says, hey, I think it'd be interesting because my game is a remake of this retro game, so it would fit in that category, looking at how far we can take this retro vibe, or some sort of angle that does make it unique, as opposed to just, here's a key, please give me a review. Staff writers can write interesting stories and have more wiggle room. They often aren't pitching, they're not really trying to get new people to get their work. A lot of places where I've staff written, I've just been like, I think this is cool, and they've been like, good, do it. And so it's a lot easier if you contact staff writers. With that in mind, there are less and less staff writers. So it's a double-edged sword. It's very difficult to actually contact them. But if you can, and they have an interest in your sort of niche or where your game is, you should do it. So there are also news writers. That's my cat. I love him. News writers are very different. I've never been a news writer. I've worked with news writers. They basically need to be the first to post about your game news. So if you're having a big update and your game's already been written about on a website, or if you've got some sort of traction somewhere and are building a community, you should email news writers. It might be a slow day. They are contracted to write 6 to 8 articles a day, depending on the site, and they have to meet that goal by the end of the day. And some days, there isn't a lot of news. So they'll write about anything. So if you have sort of updates, you should definitely email news writers. But they do want to be the first person to write about that news, because it's all about SEO terms. That's how news writers work. And as soon as they aren't the first person, it's either secondary news sites that just grab articles, or they pass it. So if you send news articles, it's kind of important to send embargoes on what time you're happy with them releasing the news, and then sticking to those embargoes and not releasing anything early. That's a big key to it. But news is often, if a place has written about your game previously, it's good for getting more coverage on your game and another boost to it because they'll backlink and they'll often write about it. YouTubers is a whole different ballgame. This is a URL. I'll put my slides online. It's a link to a big document of all of the indie game YouTubers, their sub counts, the genres they like, the place that you can contact them. It's great. It's a great site. Bigger YouTubers get a lot of emails. Everyone seems to get a lot of emails. Because they get more emails, try to go for some smaller YouTubers that have good audiences, because you're more likely to actually get coverage. Everyone would love to get coverage from Markiplier, but he mainly works with publishers who he's already established with and doesn't really read his emails. It's someone else who goes through them. You need to, again, see what games that person plays. If they've never played an RPG and you've got an RPG, chances are they're not going to play your RPG. It's just not going to happen. A lot of times they don't reply. That's the same with basically everyone. I'm sorry, I'm sure they get a lot of emails. Make sure you contact them how they prefer to be contacted. Again, a very simple thing. When it comes to YouTube, I prefer to be Twitter DM'd. I've written that on my YouTube channel. People still email me, that's fine, but it's good to actually look at where they want to be contacted. People contact me on Instagram for YouTube videos. I don't even post about games on Instagram. I do not know why they do this. So now we're going to talk about where you should start when sending out emails. So emails is like primarily how press work. They work through emails. That's my cat. He's looking confused. He doesn't know much about emails. You kind of want to start about a month before the game launches, minimum, if you're going to send like a press release about your game launching. You definitely want to send an email at least 2 weeks before your game launches, again, because the process is the person writes, it goes to an editor, it comes back to me, it goes to an editor, then it gets put on a schedule and then put live. So there's no, there needs to be a buffer. If you're sending your game out on the day that it releases, it's not going to get coverage because that's not enough time. If you go to an event like this and you meet press and you want them to cover your game, email them after an event. And tell them you met them at the event, and you might get a little hands-on feature of how your game was at that event. If there's a major update, again, you should email news people. People can update their articles and give them another push basically on sites. It's just very good to continue the conversation, especially if someone is interested in your game. So this is an inbox from 9 a.m. till end of day, and it was cleared a couple times. This is just what was left. Yeah, I don't know. We get a lot of emails. Are all of these emails important? No. He clears out his inbox every day. It's madness. So this is just an example. We get a lot of emails. So you do have to make your emails stand out. So the subject line is what we first see. A couple of emails I got recently were just emojis in the subject title. I don't know what you're trying to do. I don't know what it means, and I've just deleted them because I don't know. Why is it just emojis? Don't do that. If you want to include an emoji or two, go for it. We're hip. It's 2020. We know what emojis are, but your whole title shouldn't be emojis. I can't even search that in my inbox later. Don't write in all caps. There's 2 publishers that just write in all caps. It's really aggressive. Their entire email's in caps. It's really off-putting. Some people don't put real titles at the subject, which again, we use this to search through our inbox to find stuff. So if you just put PewDiePie is the great person who went sweat, nothing to do with your game and not your game name, we're not going to be able to find it again. And super long titles will get cut off, like in the previous email, we won't be able to see them all. You should definitely include your game name early on so that it's searchable. You should mark in the title if you're looking for a review, a preview, if there's interview opportunities, what you want from us so that we can look. If you're doing a giveaway, mark that in the title. And you should definitely mark if a key to your game is included. Because on slow days, press tend to just search if there's a Steam key and then find out what games they have Steam keys to already and just quickly write them up and quickly start playing them. So it's good to actually include that information in a searchable manner. Inside your email, you need to have an elevator pitch. And an elevator pitch is not, my game is Zelda meets Crossy Road. Because not everyone likes Zelda, and, not everyone likes Crossy Road. And putting a game that someone might not like in your elevator pitch will mean anyone who doesn't like that won't play it. Because they don't want to, because you've compared it to a game that they don't like. And it's the same with, comparing it, you often find some people don't play all of the games you expect them to play. Like, I've played Crossy Road in an arcade. I've not played it on mobile, and I hadn't played it till that point. So if you told me it was like Crossy Road, that means nothing to me. Spend some time actually describing your game in a very concise 1 to 2 sentences that tells you the meat of what's going on. Have a link to your game. This is a very simple concept. I do not know why people just send their game titles. We need to be able to access information quickly. We get a lot of emails. Make a press kit, and then have a link to your press kit in the email. This is, again, used for imaging. It's used for sourcing stuff. It's very needed for mobile. You're going to need to include a key if your game's on Steam or on itch under a paywall, and that's just for easier playing. If there's a lot of back and forth, often press people will just stop because they're like, well, we have to email back and then wait and then email back. And that also relies on you to be checking your email a lot, which I find a lot of indie developers don't, which is fine, but it doesn't help if I need a key from you. You can put in GIFs if you want. You can put in screenshots. You should put in screenshots at the very least. Some people like GIFs. Some people don't like GIFs. If you have an embargo, that needs to be in your email, because if it's not, people aren't going to follow your embargo because they're unaware of it. It's pretty basic. If you have any special features to your game, if it's multiplayer, if you can only play with controllers for whatever reason, anything that'll make playing it quicker needs to be put up there. If it's a NES game that requires an emulator, please list that in the email. It's kind of important information. So another key part of your email is making a connection with the individual you're talking to. There has to be something that connects you to that other person so that they take more time to read your email. So you can compare it to a game they've covered that they liked, that they left a positive review of. Don't compare it to a game they've left a negative review of because you didn't read the review. That's not very good. Say that you've met them in person, if you have met them in person, obviously, and mention where. And that might spark them remembering you, so they'll spend a little extra time. If you like their work, if they've never covered a game similar to yours and you haven't met them and you like their work, mention specifically what you like about it. There's a lot of bots that are like, we liked your article at URL blah, blah, blah. And we understand that's a bot. So going, yeah, I really like the way that you covered this game and this article. You really went in depth in this aspect of it. That just makes us sort of like smile and appreciate your email and spend more time. You just need to do that. If you make a deeper connection with people because of the amount of emails we're getting a day, that makes it makes it feel personal, and it makes us spend more time. And then we might end up covering your game and your next game and your next game, because now it feels like we're friends. If you are emailing all of the press in the world, please don't CC us all. It's really not good. This is a very simple thing. Please don't email everyone, but if you are, do it correctly. Make sure it's very generic. Definitely don't CC everyone. We do not like having conversations with each other. We're not that friendly when it comes to our emails. Do include a press kit. This is a must. I don't know why people don't. You can use press kit. You can make an itch.io press kit page. They have a template now. There are so many options. Just do it. Proofread your email. That's simple. You should still do it. I understand not like a lot of you speak English completely fluently, and that's fine. You do not have to put a big thing that says, I don't speak English well, I'm so sorry. You can just put at the top, I'm a Spanish game developer. And then we understand that your English might not be completely perfect, but my English is never perfect. So it's fine. A lot of people do spend more time apologizing for their English than they do actually talking about their game, and that can sometimes be an issue. So this is more about like making a connection at events, since we're at an event. You should definitely exchange business cards with press at events. They get printed business cards from their businesses, and they love handing them out. It's part of our job. I swear we need to hand out a certain number of business cards, it seems, per event. There's this thing that people used to do called game dev selfie, where they take, it's mainly in England and I guess in Germany and Sweden I've done it, where they take pictures with press people and a bunch of indies, and they tag it as like game dev selfie. And then I and a couple other press people have watched, like, literally scroll through the hashtag to find where we've met developers that we want to contact again, to find their information because they didn't have a business card, or they didn't have an email, or I've lost it. So that's good in keeping like face recognition, and it's very cute. If you get a business card, follow up about 3 days after the event's still in that person's mind, but they've slept. That's important. following the same day, you might not get a reply, and you might be in the backlog of emails. Mention the event, of course, and that you met them, and that you said hi, and maybe where you met them, if you were at this event, if you saw their talk. Just mention it. So again, this is kind of important. Your first public build, that's your launch. For press, that's your launch. You launched in early access, we don't care, that's your launch now. And that's something a lot of developers don't really consider. They go, oh, I've put it out on early access, oh, I'll wait for the big launch to make a big press appeal. That doesn't work. Because if your early access game didn't get traction, we're not going to cover its big launch. So you're really going to need to start thinking about how to contact press before your first launch, before your first public release. Because as soon as it's available on the internet, people start reacting to it. And for press specifically, for websites, SEO goes down. So if we're not the first few people covering your game, our SEO ranking, which is very important for advertisements, very important for being seen, lowers. So we want to hear about your game the first time it's available to the public, the first time someone can download it. If you've got an embargo, please don't pull the embargo. Developers who have an embargo and then go, actually, we don't have an embargo, we stop covering their games because we've often put someone in charge of getting the article out by the time of the embargo. And the embargo is when you're allowed to start publicly talking. And if they suddenly take the embargo away, that's kind of a waste of our timeline. So it's something that's a big mistake that people sometimes do accidentally. Does it have an angle and does it fit with the site is something we covered, but again, they really, really matter. Make sure it does fit with the site and have some sort of angle to talk about. It's a lot of work, and it does sound like a lot of work, and it's very tiring, but so is answering all of these emails. So, I mean, it's a lot of work for both of us. And there are a lot of benefits to this lot of work. You're more likely to get coverage because you've now made a connection. You've got a website that fits. You've got an angle that people can follow. You've got lots of little aspects that are done well enough to make it so that the person reading this email is the right person to cover your game. We'll have that connection with you. We'll know why it fits in well. We'll know the easiest way to pitch it. And that makes both of our jobs easier. It makes it easier to be pitched, it makes it easier to be covered, it makes it easier to be reviewed. And it's just, again, important. PR company is really important. At Armor, we do have an internal PR company, and they're the people that have the contact list that can contact Markiplier and get through to him. That's nice. There are different PR companies that do lots of different things, but they do have contacts. They do know who to contact. They know what angle to bring your game at. They can look at what you've done and gone, well, I'm sorry, your game would be better like this. There's too many games that are pitched like that. They're very good at reviewing stuff because that's their job. It's someone dedicated to doing that. They also help with general marketing. And if you're reaching out to press, you obviously are trying to market your game. And if you're trying to market your game and you're able to have a dedicated person to help do that, a professional is very good. You do need to look over PR companies. Again, with everything, there are good ones, there are bad ones. There are ones that have not so great deals. There are ones that have better deals. There are ones that can help you with stuff you might not care about. If your game's never coming to Xbox, you probably don't want to pick a publisher who specializes in getting you in the idea Xbox route. It's a great route, but not if you're not using Xbox. So you don't want to put something in their hands that they can't properly work with. So it takes research, but it can be very helpful, especially if you have the budget, if you're able to do that. This is my contact info. That's the end. That's everything I have to talk about. This is my contact info. Feel free to follow me on Twitter. I post pictures of my cat. All of these pictures of my cat are from Twitter. I love him. That's my email. If you want to email me, my email is a trash fire because I don't clear my email at the end of every day. So if you email me, follow up on Twitter. Message me. My DMs are open. DM me. Be nice. It's cool. I'll probably reply.